Okay, guys, this is now video 2 of the eye on sensation and perception. So in the last video, we looked at the structures of the eye. And what we're going to do in this video is we're going to focus on the structure that actually changes the light into a neural impulse. And that structure is in the back of the eye called the retina. So let's jump into that for video number 2. So the retina is the neural tissue lining the inside back surface of the eye. It absorbs light, processes images, and sends that visual information to the brain. And if you remember from the last unit, the area in the brain that receives that information is the occipital lobe, the back of the head. So you're not actually seeing with your eyes, you're seeing with the back part of your brain. Although the retina is only a paper-thin sheet of neural tissue, it contains a complex network of specialized cells arranged in layers, as shown here. This is what the back of the retina looks like. The axons that run from the retina to the brain converge at a single spot where they exit the eye. At that point, all the fibers dive through a hole in the retina called the optic disc. That would be over here. Since the optic disc is a hole in the retina, you cannot see the part of the image that falls onto it. So technically, in each eye, you have a blind spot, a little area in the eye where nothing is happening visually. So like I said, there's a blind spot where the optic disc is located. Your brain compensates for that blind spot so you don't see a sort of a blank image in your field of vision. So here's a demonstration of the blind spot. Now, I think there's probably one in your textbook. It's probably easier to do, in the textbook than do it online with me. But there is a blind spot in each one of your eyes. So the retina contains millions of receptor cells that are sensitive to light. Surprisingly, these receptor cells are located in the innermost layer of the retina. Hence, light must pass through several layers of cells before it gets to the receptors that actually detect it. Now we're going to look at the rods and the cones in the retina. So the retina contains two types of receptors, rods and cones. Their names are based on their shape. This is the rod, more rod-shaped. This is the cone, more cone-shaped. The roughly 100 to 125 million rods in each eye are more slender and elongated, whereas the 5 to 6.5 million cones in each eye are stubbier. So each type of cell, we're going to look at what it's responsible for. So let's do the rods first. The rods play a role in night vision because they are more sensitive than the cones to light. As you can see in this chart, the density of the rods is greatest just outside the area called the fovea and gradually decreases towards the periphery of the retina. The rods handle the lion's share of peripheral vision because they greatly outnumber cones in the periphery of the retina. So now let's take a look at the cone cells. Cones play a key role in daylight vision and color vision. Cones do not respond well to dim light, but in bright light they provide more sharpness and detail than the rods. As this chart shows, the cones are concentrated most heavily in the center of the retina in an area called the fovea, and quickly fall off in density towards its periphery. The fovea is a teeny spot in the center of the retina that contains only cones. Visual acuity, that means clearness, is greatest at this spot. When you want to see something sharply, you usually move your eyes to the center of the object or to center the object in the fovea. So let's take a look at some of the things that we just discussed. So which of these would be the rod cell? More elongated would be the rod cell. Which of these would be the cone cell? or the dominant receptor in the fovea, that would be here. Critical to color vision, cone cell. Critical to peripheral vision, rod cell. Outnumber the other type of visual receptors, so that would be rod cell. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about dark adaptation. So you probably noticed that when you enter a dark theater on a bright day, you stumble about almost blindly, but within minutes, you can make your way quite well in the dim light. This adjustment is called dark adaptation. Hopefully, we'll all go to a movie theater again at some point in our lives. The process in which the eyes become more sensitive to light in low illumination. So the chart you're about to see maps out the course of dark adaptation. The declining thresholds for light detection indicates that you require less and less light to see, but it takes time to get there. That's why, believe it or not, the highest probability of an auto accident is around dusk, when the light's just starting to go down, because your eyes haven't adapted yet to the low level of light. The curve that charts your overall adaptation consists of two segments, because the cones adapt more rapidly than the rods. Vision improves markedly during the first 5 to 10 minutes as the cone cells adapt rapidly. However, the cone's adaptation soon reaches its limit. Further improvement comes from the adaptation of the rods, which adapt more slowly than the cones but can handle lower levels of light. In processing the visual input, the retina transforms a pattern of light falling onto it into a very different representation of the visual scene. Light striking the rods and cones triggers neural signals that move from receptors to bipolar cells to ganglion cells, which in turn send impulses along the optic nerve, a collection of axons that connect to the brain from the eye. So these axons, which depart from the eye through the optic disc, carry visual information encoded as a stream of neural impulses to the brain. And I believe that is everything you need to know about the eye. So the next thing we're going to do in the next video is look a little bit at the ear.